doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My name is Whitley Parker. I'm a third year law student here. It's really an honor and a pleasure to kind of sit down with you and have a legal chat about all the impactful work that you're doing in our community. I guess we could start out just by asking who is Attorney Thompson?
Ryan Keith Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, particularly the West End part of Birmingham, Alabama. At 13, I moved to Inglewood, California. My mother and my stepfather. From there, I went to Inglewood High School. I graduated from Dominguez High School in Compton, California. I then did a year of junior college at East LA Junior College, and then I subsequently earned a scholarship to Southern Utah University. I graduated from Southern Utah University as a charter member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated,
Okay.
also as a founding member of the Black Student Union there. I subsequently came home, attended the police academy, so I do have a post certificate. I subsequently went into sales for a while, and then after about 4 years in sales and management experience, I decided to go back and get my master's in public health from Charles R. George University of Medicine and Science with a master's in urban public health with an emphasis in social justice. From there, after working as a community health outreach worker, I decided to attend law school. So the question then became is, where was I going to go to law school? Because I had attended a PWI undergrad, the choice became simple. It was either Howard, Thurgood Marshall, or Southern.
Yeah.
Southern reached out, Chancellor Pierre reached out, and I decided to attend Southern because at the time the goal was for the entire family to be on one campus because the lab school was here. There was another graduate program for my wife, so we decided to attend Southern University as a family. Didn't quite work out that way, but that was the goal. And then from there, I decided while I was in law school that I was going to be a public defender. So I did the public defender, started out there as an intern. From there, I became a student investigator, then a Rule 20 attorney, and then a subsequent misdemeanor attorney. And now I'm a felony assistant there at the public defender's office.
Well, thank you. Very well accomplished. What motivated you to take on social justice cases?
So I know. So growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, obviously some call it Birmingham, obviously with the 16th Street bombing there in Birmingham. But I think growing up as a person of African descent in what some would consider impoverished communities, you can't help but notice the disparities. My master's in public health helped amplify that, be able to identify the disparities, whether it be health disparities, whether it be racial disparities. And so at that point, I decided, well, what is the best avenue by which I can go about effectuating change? There was a recommendation from a mentor of mine by the name of Dr. Ernie Smith, as well as Earl 5X Grant. Earl 5X Grant has since passed on, but they were like, hey, look, we've done all the research in terms of psychology, sociology, linguistics. We need someone to bring these issues to the court. And so that's what made me decide to go into the legal field to then bring the issues, bring the research into the courtroom. It just so happens that Louisiana decided to keep me for a while. And so that's why I'm still here carrying out my social contract.
Well, Louisiana's glad to have you.
I'm sure.
When you were in law school, did you know that you would someday embark upon a journey in this nature?
Absolutely. Again, after my first year of law school, there was a now attorney, DeJuan Mansfield, who was working at the Office of the Public Defender at the time, and I was like, hey, are you guys looking for interns? She's like, absolutely, we are. So she sent my resume to the then deputy chief at the time. I think she called within 24 hours and was like, we like what's on your resume. Would you be willing to come interview with us? So I interviewed, and she offered the internship on the spot. So I knew then, at that point, that the Public Defender's Office provided indigent defense to probably some upwards of 95% of indigent clients or criminal clients the office was going to serve. I also knew that the parish at the time was majority black, but I definitely knew that all of them were going to be indigent. So falling within the mission statement of the Law Center in terms of impacting underserved communities and things of that nature, it fit right with what it is that I wanted to do. So I knew when I came into law school what I was going to do. I had a plan and I carried it out.
Thank you. With one of your recent cases sparking swift change in a local police department, do you feel as though that you are making a difference with the work that you're doing?
Yes. Sometimes it doesn't happen as fast as I wanted to. Like I said before, I've been at the public defender's office for at least 7 years now. But I want to be clear that though I am a public defender, I also have a private practice through the Thompson Justice Institute. So though I do work with the public defender's office during the daytime, my nighttime job is through the Social Justice Institute. So to answer your question, yes, I feel like I'm being impactful. However, I feel like it's not as happening as fast as I wanted to. But as we say, God coming, she's just taking her time.
Yeah. Do you feel as though your experience in Police Academy has any type of influence or kind of give you a different perspective around the work that you do?
It does. So I know what, I believe I know what officers should be doing. While in the Police Academy, they harped very heavy on that this is a profession, right? It's not just some job, it's a profession. And so there are a professional code of ethics that I believe officers should follow. The law degree just kind of heightened my education and gave me a more in-depth knowledge of criminal procedure, con law, and things of that nature. So it does help to see kind of different sides of it. So absolutely it does. It does actually add an extra layer when I'm analyzing cases and whether or not I should take those on, or what should be done and what should and should not be done.
I think that's a really good point to make, that you do have that experience, that background for a lot of the work that you're doing, because a lot of times people think that attorneys don't always have that firsthand knowledge of what a police should and shouldn't do. So I feel like in this case, you do have that, and I feel like that's very key and important in the work that you do. My next question for you is, how can attorneys utilize social media and news media to amplify their clients' voices?
So in everything that an attorney does, you always want to keep in mind the rules of professional ethics, right? So Louisiana has the Louisiana Rules of Professional Responsibility, Professional Ethics. There's also the ABA model rules. Attorneys want to be very careful, especially young attorneys coming out. Social media is a thing. And so there's a rule that talks about that an attorney should not be in the public eye or be in the media in a way that will affect the case. However, there's always an exception. There are exceptions to exceptions that you learn in law school. When there are things that are said about your client that paints them in a bad light, or that is false, or that you believe to be negative, you have a duty and an obligation to correct that. And so when individuals are using social media to amplify a certain case, they want to keep those things in mind. I reach out often to either professors and who are ethics professors, or sometimes I'll even call the ethics department at Louisiana to kind of get some guidance on that. Those using social media where I'm not amplifying certain cases, you can also amplify your work. There's work that I do that doesn't necessarily involve a certain case, but more or less highlights some work that I'm doing in the community. For example, while I was at the public defender's office, I did a campaign to bail mothers out for Mother's Day. I also followed it up with a Know Your Rights Night. So there's different ways in which you can use social media to amplify the work that you're doing or to get the word out. Every morning I watch Democracy Now! So if there's a story that I watch in Democracy Now! I believe the community needs to know about, I'll use that. I use my platform or tag individuals to amplify what I believe the community should know about.
Okay, so would you say that social media is currently impacting the legal field in a positive manner?
Absolutely. If you look at, again, going back to the preamble of the Model Rules of Professional Responsibility, it talks about being a change agent, or using, or kind of being like a check on the system, so to say, to make sure that we are helping to grow the profession, that the profession is being inclusive, to give access to individuals who wouldn't necessarily have access to it. And so I use my social media platform to amplify the voices that necessarily wouldn't be heard.
Thank you. My next question, how did your experience here at the Law Center impact the trajectory of your career?
So, how long we got? No. So, obviously, when you walk into the Law Center, there's a sign that says "Serious is the Purpose." Also, if you walk into the Law Center and you take the elevator to your left, in the enclosure there is the full mission statement So in the full mission statement there, it talks about providing legal education, and then those lawyers that they're going to train, going back to rural communities, going back to underserved communities. So I knew when I walked in that I was in the right place. Now, once I got here, I was insulated with some individuals who I believe that were subject matter experts in the things that I wanted to do. For example, Professor Angela Allen Bell. I took her for several courses. Some of the work that we did was a work around, we just came out of Black August, and so it was the Soledad brothers, and there was a brother by the name of John Couchette who was still incarcerated, who we believe was a political prisoner. We wrote a petition to the United Nations. So I took her. There was also a professor here in common law by the name of Stanley Halpin, who had did some civil rights work around desegregation. So he was definitely instrumental in talking to him and providing his expertise and insight on some of those cases. Also, while I was here, there was, and you guys are probably still using the book, Dean Chemerinsky came to visit, and he was very impactful in talking to him. But I want to highlight something that he said while we were here. He was very impressed with Professor Shanika Gray. I think now she's probably
Associate Vice
Chancellor, in her book on evidence. I still use that book. That is my Bible when I walk in the courtroom. I don't go to motions practice. I don't practice, or I don't go to motions hearings without it. I don't go to trial without it. So again, those are just some of the professors that impacted my life or my legal career. But I also want to give a shout out in terms of creating this family environment.
Absolutely.
Ms. Marla Dickerson was very impactful, kind of like a sister to me. She was always inviting, always there for an open ear. And then lastly, there is a individual who's now passed on. We called her Mama Claudette. She worked in the library, and so she was always there as an open ear, kind of like a mother figure to me, whereby you can go in and just talk and just relax. So to answer your question, all those different things, classes, individuals, were very impactful in shaping the person that you see before you today.
Thank you. It's really good to hear you mention those influential professors, especially a lot of them who are still here. I have Professor Gray now. She's my mock trial competition team, and she swears about the evidence book. So last year for mock trial competition, evidence was not my strong suit. So this year I'm like really buckling down on my evidence and get prepared for all those objections for competition.
Well, let me say this to you, and I'm not ashamed to say I received a B- in that course. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on your grades. You should. But the goal is to make sure that you are comfortable with the subject. And as an attorney, everything is not going to be off the cuff. You're going to use that book as a reference. And so now what you're doing, you're starting your legal career, and you're introducing yourself, familiarizing yourself with the subject. So I'm saying that to say is don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed. Continue to use the book, familiarize yourself with the subject, and you'll be just fine.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for rising attorneys that are looking to take on movement or social justice cases?
Yes. It's not easy, and so I want to make that clear. It's not easy. A lot of times you're sitting at the table by yourself. You're on the side of an issue by yourself, and you have to be ready to take some appeals, and then if they don't rule in your favor, then you have to be ready to go to the Supreme Court. And even still, they still may rule against you, but you just have to keep going back to the drawing board and be willing to stand up. There's a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it here from the late great Thurgood Marshall. He says, "Don't go into courtrooms arguing what's legal, go into courtrooms and argue what's right." And so I use that as a compass to say, is this right? Is what I'm watching on this body worn camera right? Is what I'm watching on this, or on what I'm reading in this affidavit of probable cause right? Is what my client telling me what happened to them right or wrong? And so a lot of times, myself and Attorney Jessica Hawkins, who handles a lot of the work with me, it's a question. It's not a question of whether or not something is legal. It's a question of whether or not something is right. In reading a lot of decisions that you're going to read in law school, you will see sometimes where the justices or the judges will say, Had you asked for it, I would have given it to you. But because you didn't ask for it, I'm not obligated, or I'm not in a position to give you the relief that you're seeking. So if you believe that something is wrong, ask for it. And they'll tell you, say, no, I think this law is wrong. At one point, segregation, Plessy v. Ferguson, was encoded in the law. But you have to, someone said, no, this is wrong. And so don't be afraid to say when something is wrong. Lastly, if you're looking to get rich, right, this is not something where you're going to be rich. It's not something where you're going to be famous. I know everyone sees individuals who are on social media or on television and it looks cool. They see Ben Crump. That's an anomaly, right? Again, a lot of times you're by yourself, and there are some long nights, and there are some times where this work will impact your personal life, your health, and things of that nature. So if this is something that you are deeply passionate about, whether it be reproductive rights, whether it be racial justice, social justice, or just the overall movement that they say, just make sure this is what you want to do.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit down and have this legal chat with you. I just want to thank you for visiting Law Center today and just kind of share your experiences with the students and the community of the Law Center. We really appreciate it.
No, it's been a pleasure to come back home. This is always kind of a homecoming with me. I usually kind of float in and out of here every now and then, but usually I'm able to kind of duck in and nobody really knows. But now it's kind of like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, but thank you for having me. I hope that this conversation is impactful in some way, and that someone finds some use from watching this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.